This is a comparison of joblessness in various parts of our world. The derivatives market is the leading edge of the global financial bubble. It has caused mass unemployment and underemployment. Unemployment rates on a global level is now calculated at between 1/2 and 3/4 of a billion people.
Not only would another global financial collapse take away people's savings and homes, it will likely take away their jobs also.
Unemployment, which was already at high levels globally throughout the 1970s and 1980s, has exploded the very time that the derivatives market has risen within the United States from a few trillion to currently $12 trillion outstanding, with a yearly trading volume of greater than $125 trillion. The advanced sector and above 500 million in the developing sector. Unemployment, which was already at high levels globally throughout the 1970s and 1980s, has exploded the very time that the derivatives market has risen within the United States from a few trillion to currently $12 trillion outstanding, with a yearly trading volume of greater than $125 trillion.
Bear in mind that these are not mere numbers but represent frightened people, many of them falling ill and slowly starving to death, along with those they love and care for.
11.4% in Canada. To some nations with a large labor force, Canada's officially reported level of unemployment of 1.6 million may not seem much, but consider that against Canada's working population of 13.9 million. This represents 11.4% of its workforce. 17% in the US of A. The official unemployment rate was 4.4% in the decade of the 1950s, 4.7% in the decade of the 1960s, and 7% today. The most worrisome part of the explosion in unemployment since 1989 is the layoff of manufacturing workers. In 1989, the United States had 19.39 million manufacturing workers. Today it has 17.82 million, a loss of 1.56 million. Realistic US of A unemployment is 17.0%, not the official US government figures of 6.9%. The United States, for example, reports 8.858 million unemployed, representing 6.9% of the labor force. But if one adds in 6.580 million workers who work part-time for economic reasons and 6.378 million workers who are not in the labor force but who answer government surveys saying that they want a job, the total number of unemployed and underemployed is 21.816 million for a labor force of 128.3 million. 11.8% in the European community's 12 nations. The effect is even more dramatic. Unemployment has risen from an official rate of 2.0% in 1965 to 11.8% today. 6 European community members have an officially posted rate of greater than 10%. They are Britain, 10.5%, Italy, 13.6%, France, 10.9%, Spain, 21%, Ireland 19%, and Denmark 11.5%. If one adds the officially reported unemployment levels for the European community of 12 nations to the levels of unemployed in Canada, Japan, and the United States, then the total level of unemployment in the West is a staggering 29 million people. The European community reports that just a shade under 1/2 of the 17 million officially reported unemployed European workers have been out of work for 1 year or more. In 1989, according to the British Information Office, Britain had 5.1 million manufacturing workers. In January 1993, it had only 4.1 million, a loss of 1/5 in 4 years. Britain is truly the junk heap of Europe. In the western portion of Germany, between 1989 and the present, the number of manufacturing jobs declined from 7.203 million to 6.977 million, a loss of nearly 250,000. An estimated 1 million manufacturing jobs may have been lost in the former East Germany during the same time frame. And these are only the official figures. If the real unemployed in the other nations under consideration are brought to light, the total unemployed in the West, with Japan, is between 50 and 55 million. Unemployment in East Bloc and developing sector. Derivatives trading and International Monetary Fund conditionalities operate in tandem, and are just two sides of the same coin. Take the case of Poland, where IMF conditionalities and the speculative/derivatives market are raging at the same time. Just a few years ago, in this nation of 39 million people, with a labor force of 20 million, unemployment was less than 500,000, though some of the jobs were of poor quality. Today, the official unemployment level is 2.3 million, and many believe it is 2 to 3 times that rate.
43% of all households can get food only on the condition that other expenses are cut down to a minimum, or are not even paid, such as rents and electricity bills.
50% in Mexico. In Mexico, today, the government reports an official unemployment rate of 2.9%. Nobody believes this. In 1980, Mexico had a labor force of 22 million and an official unemployment level of 3.5 million. Since that time, 10 million workers entered the workforce, but the economy has stagnated. These 10 million workers are either unemployed or part of the burgeoning informal economy, i.e., street vendors, criminals, etc. If one adds this 10 million, the unemployment and underemployment level is 13.5 million. There are 2 million additional uncounted workers in the agricultural sector who are unemployed or unemployed. The final result, Mexico has 15.5 million unemployed or underemployed in labor force of 32 million, nearly 50% unemployment. Such levels of unemployment, or only slightly lower, exist in many Ibero-American nations. With an Ibero-American workforce in 1990 of 174 million, assuming an unemployment rate of only 33% for Ibero-America, then the level of unemployed and underemployed on that continent is 58 million. China total unemployment and underemployment exceeds 250 million. China and India are two other examples. Both countries are the victims of forced underdevelopment, which is the flip side of the speculative derivatives markets. In 1990, together these two huge nations had 1.987 billion people, 37% of the world total, and a combined workforce of 1.003 billion, 41% of the world total. In July 1993, the Chinese Ministry of Labor reported that China has already 170 million surplus agricultural laborers, and the number will swell to 400 million by the year 2000. Between 100 to 150 million of these agricultural workers swarm in mass migrations from city to city, desperately looking for work and food. They are the human fodder that is fed into China's slave labor special economic zones to keep workers' wages at 10 cents an hour. If a worker doesn't want to take a job at that level, an unemployed agricultural worker surely will. Moreover, while some of China's 92 million member industrial workforce is employed in special economic zones, the backbone of old smokestack industry is cracking, and large numbers of Chinese are being laid off there. 11% in India. The government admits an unemployment rate of 11%, which in a country with a 323 million workforce is 30 million. But in India, 70% of the farms are less than 1 acre, a very small area. This means that there is a good part of the year when there is nothing for the Indian farmer to do on his small plot of land. About 65% of India's agricultural population is underutilized, if not downright unemployed. Many of them look around desperately for other work. One could conservatively say that the level of unemployed and underemployment in India is 80 million. In Africa, proportionally, the numbers are as large. In each and every instance, the conditionalities of the International Monetary Fund and the World Trade Organization, and the imposition of Anglo-American speculative markets, led by derivative speculating, are the cause of this misery. Well, that is enough of that.
The suffering is needless. Shut down the derivatives markets and return to the great project's perspective of infrastructure building and installing technologies, and the world suddenly has the availability of 1/2 to 3/4 of a billion of human beings to rebuild it.
However, it is not likely that the diversity of humankind's social systems will in the foreseeable future allow this to happen on a worldwide basis. But it has been determined that it can be done here in North America, as described in the plan. 1 out of 10 people alive will be involved, and that is by any sensible person's reckoning a good start. It cannot be done anywhere else on earth just now, so
North America must show the way. We wonder, will those here in Canada and the US who have the wherewithal to achieve social change continue to struggle to maintain the sovereignty of their failing nations, or will they acknowledge that our world is not the place their grandparents were born into and never again will be, and learn what is involved in reorganizing for the future? Which, by the way, can be friendly. The plan exists so they can learn what needs to be done.
something that happened in the Soviet Union could happen here. Something we do not want. The Soviet Union collapsed and broke up into feudal states when their citizens lost faith in their financial economy. Very soon North Americans will justifiably lose faith also, and our entire financial economy will collapse, taking all of people's personal assets away from them. We can expect no financial help from the other nations which in the past have taken turns propping up each other's financial debacles, as the impending financial collapse will be global. It is important to realize that this need not be tragic here in North America, as it will be elsewhere, because we have an alternative that is not available to other parts of the world, and it is described in the plan.
It must be understood that our stores, which have been heaped high with food and goods, will not suddenly go empty just because computer monitors and pieces of paper show that the banks are broke and your money is gone. But as long as you continue to cling to the outmoded notion that we must use money to get stuff from the stores, well, you will not be able to buy the stuff because your money is all gone, and you will be put out on the street to start along with the tens of thousands that have lost everything already, and the real crunch is not here yet. But if you can use this presentation to gain some understanding of the energy accounting method of distributing goods and providing housing, you will soon see that the future can be friendly.